sweetie, what are you doing? You back in Silent Hill? It's not real, it's a psychosis. Jen, sweetie, snap out of it.
In my restless dreams, I see it. A better movie franchise than we've gotten.
Oh boy. Look, I really did not want to make this video because I am somebody who really does try to find the silver lining in just about anything. When I heard all the negative reviews about Return to Silent Hill, I still wanted to check it out for myself, make up my own mind. I figured surely it couldn't be that bad. Surely I would find something in there to appreciate. Do I think I found anything to appreciate?
No, I don't.
And don't call me Shirley.
Maybe I will eventually find a silver lining for this movie, but for now, oh boy, oh mama. Let me back up a bit because I don't want to just make like another overly dramatic, exaggerated takedown review like a lot of other folks are doing. If I'm going to critique something, especially something that means a lot to me, I want to be fair and at least give my reasons why. Silent Hill as a franchise is very near and dear to me. And that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who knows me, because I have always been enamored by the spooky side of things. There aren't many Silent Hill games, at least as far as the mainline entries are concerned, that I don't care for. Yes, even that one. Now, without getting too much into my personal life, I am somebody who has long struggled with feelings of guilt, depression, inner darkness, trauma, mental illness, you name it. All of which just so happen to be very present themes in the Silent Hill games. They're all about creating our own personal hells, and what can I say? I'm something of an expert on that myself. In a lot of ways, I think I even prefer Silent Hill to Resident Evil. To me, psychological horror always wins out over action horror, even if I can admit that RE is the more well-rounded, well-made franchise. Action horror seems to be a little bit easier to nail than psychological, since the latter requires a strong understanding of symbolism, metaphor, and under-explanation, whereas the former tends to rely heavier on jump scares, set pieces, pew 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 pew. Now obviously it's natural that two big game franchises would eventually get movie adaptations, and with their huge popularity, it really does surprise me that neither has had that great of movies. The RE movies are, let's just say, very loosely adapted as a means to shove down our throats just how badass Mila Jovovich is. And don't get me wrong, I love me some Mila Jovovich. And Silent Hill Revelation was, it was one of the movies of all time. Now, I actually really liked the first Silent Hill movie. Many regard it as one of the best video game adaptations, and I would have to agree. While certainly imperfect, and certainly taking its fair share of liberties, I do feel like it was made with a solid understanding of the franchise and what makes it tick. I appreciated the updates it made to the story of the first game, how it focused on a female perspective on the story, the look and feel and sound of it all. Far from perfect. Most of the monsters are mere cameos, and despite what retcons may lead you to believe, Pyramid Head got no business being there, buddy. I'm sorry. Even if you are arguably the best part of the movie. Keep your chin up, guy. But I do think it manages to capture the eerie, almost dreamlike, and admittedly clunky feel of things. Christoph Gans, you could tell, was a fan of the series and quite passionate about getting things right. He knew the themes, he knew the lore, and it showed. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure, but it's still one that I will happily watch to this day. I did admittedly think that Revelation was a big pyramid-size poopy dookie stain, shall we say.
Disgusting!
Bogged down by an over-reliance on 3D and an almost live-action anime feel at times, which the series has never been about. It was honestly pretty disappointing, since the game it's based on is maybe my second favorite in the series. It came out during that 3D craze of the early 2010s. Y'all remember the 3D craze of the early 2010s? That certainly was a time. Most of the scares are that awkward jump at the screen kind of bad CGI. You know what I mean. Especially when you're not watching a 3D movie in 3D, it doesn't hold up well. I think the dialogue is cringeworthy, the writing is barely there, the characters are mere shells of their game selves, and while the actors are clearly doing their best, it's just not good. And again, Pyramid Head, I love you, buddy, but you got no business being there. And I hate how they turned him into this big action star and protector. Like, that's not who he is or what he does. And honestly, I thought the reception to that movie killed any chance ever getting another Silent Hill movie anytime soon. So you can imagine how surprised and how stoked I was when they announced that not only were we getting another Silent Hill movie, but it would be based on Silent Hill 2. Now, it's not really an exaggeration to say that Silent Hill 2 changed my life. As a kid growing up in the 90s, I was there when survival horror popped off here in North America.
I was there, Gandalf.
I watched Alien when I was way too young to be doing so. I all but crapped in my underoos when the dog jumped through the window in RE1. I will always remember watching my dad play the first Silent Hill with that slow unraveling, that cinematic march down through the increasingly dark alleyway, only to be swarmed and stabbed to death by those freaky ass demon kids. Mwah, perfection. And then came Silent Hill 2. Now, we didn't even get the game, my family, until about a year or two after it came out. And by that time, I was maybe 10 or 11. I don't know what it was, honestly. Maybe I was just at that perfect age for my imagination to run wild, but it hooked me, man. And if I thought the intro to that first game was memorable, this one was even more so. You have, again, a slow march from, in this case, the observatory, all the way down through the woods and into the town, all while being caressed by this increasingly thick blanket of fog and quiet. And the way my dad played, I mean, there weren't any scares for maybe a good half hour or so, but still, I was completely smitten, both anticipating the scares and just being enamored with the atmosphere. Exploration, obviously, is a big part of the series. In other games, what would probably be relegated to a cutscene was here playable in its entirety. You really did take every step into madness alongside the characters. The series, and especially Silent Hill 2, really has a beautiful sense of melancholy. It's like being trapped somewhere between a dream and reality. I do think partly this was due to language differences between the developers in Japan and North American audiences. Partly, it was also owed to David Lynch and that kind of surrealist horror. The fog over the town was not only a physical hindrance, but a mental one, always leaving you questioning what was real and what was ahead, all while telling this strangely beautiful story of a man looking for his lost love, for forgiveness, and all the other lost souls he meets along the way. And these were all things that, as I got older and began my own struggles with mental illness, really resonated with me. Because ultimately, James is just a person, a very broken person. And unlike your normal video game protagonist, he's not some beefed up operative with combat prowess. And because of that, your swings are awkward, your aim is off. I mean, you could be pointing right at one of the monsters, and James just might completely miss. You don't even have to necessarily fight some of the monsters, unless it's a boss. And even then, like in the case of the first Pyramid Head, you can just waltz right on by. It's more about surviving than killing. And depending on how much killing you do, it can actually affect the outcome of the game. And the monsters themselves feel familiar, almost sad in a way. They're not these hulking, horrendous mutations. I mean, they kind of are, but they're also metaphors for the overarching story, symbolizing something that the protagonist has been through or done. There's something just really sadly human about most of them. For some, it's hard to tell where one part begins and another one ends. Most of them seem like they're in pain, trapped in this writhing mass of their own flesh, reaching out for help. And the town of Silent Hill as well is something of a living, breathing creature, every bit as metaphorical as its monsters. To put it into channel-appropriate terms, think of it as the Scarecrow's fear talks. Everyone is drawn to the town for different reasons, and everyone sees different things. Some don't even see monsters at all. The town just reflects back at them their deepest secrets, whether angry, sad, vengeful, lonely, whatever the case may be, and they either learn their lesson or get their punishment. Having the characters be lost, lonely humans only drove home that message more for me. So here we are. The first movie was a loose adaptation of the first game. The second movie was a loose adaptation of the third. And now we have Return to Silent Hill, a loose adaptation of the second. And when I say loose, I mean loose. Looser than in a hot summer, that loose. It's the cinematic equivalent of Tim Allen's Home Improvement grunge. I just kept looking at the screen going, Now, let me preface this review by saying that I understand adaptations are just that. They are retellings. Things are always going to be different just because, at least in this case, the different medium, you don't have control character like you do in the game, so certain choices need to be made for you. Like I said, I always try to keep an open mind and at least appreciate why certain changes were made. Case in point, the Silent Hill 2 remake. It changed some things here and there, moved set pieces around, but still managed to maintain the tone and meaning of that original game, even if they did leave their own mark on things. Return to Silent Hill, however, well, it does leave a mark. A stain, a skid mark, if you will. Disgusting! And don't get me wrong, I should have seen it coming. I mean, I read the reviews going in, so I didn't exactly have the highest of expectations, but, somewhat middling expectations. What can I say? I like to enjoy things. Woohoo! Here we go, baby, here we go. Let's start with what I did like first, since that's going to be a much shorter segment. First off, the music. Of course, Akira Yamaoka's soundtrack is the stuff of legends, and hearing the tracks here was no different. These songs are great in any context, though I will say I do think that they were a little bit better executed in that first movie. Secondly, some of the monster designs. The lying figure had a cool little redesign, I think. I liked that you could kind of see its bony little chicken wing arms in the back. And I did like that we got more of them this time around versus like the 30-second cameo the first time. They kill like the only other character in the movie, just like Silent Hill Revelation. There's a very minor character that isn't there in the games. You can tell is just kind of there to be killed unceremoniously 90 seconds later. The nurses as well get a cool little redesign. As somebody with trypophobia, I really thought their faces were disgusting, but in a good way, in the way they're supposed to be. I thought they were very effective and very creepy with their dancer-ness. I did like the Mary hospital bed monster thing, Moth Mary, I think it's called. Even if they did end up combining it with another monster, which I kind of like in the games, which I was a little disappointed about, but it still looked pretty cool. Oh, and the creepers. We did get another little scene of those little buggy guys devouring things. I do think that they made them appropriately threatening feeling. I did also like that they gave them still kind of like a humanish face, but a little bit less so. It's a little bit more abstract versus like that very blatant human face from the first movie. There's also some locations and shots that are like just right out of the game, which is fun to see. Little Easter eggs here and there. I don't know if it was like an intentional Easter egg, but there's like a super brief shot when James enters the apartments of like the apparition of Mary up on this balcony. That was really kind of reminiscent of Lisa from PT. Oh god, I miss PT. Just another Silent Hill injustice. And I think that's it. I really can't think of anything else that I liked. So I guess we'll get to the bad. Oh, here we go. Okay. I guess I'll start with James, since he is the main character. Now, I will say, considering what he was given, I did think Jeremy Irvine did a good enough job as James. I mean, he's acted in things before. He was very good in those, so we know he can act. And you could tell that he gave it his all, even if the material was a little iffy. That said, I did not
I did not.
like this take on James. And I get it. I mean, James in the game is sort of like deliberately blank. He's very aloof, very out of it, which just kind of adds to the dreamlike state, but also kind of feels intentional and that we're not really supposed to have a handle on it. You could argue that he's grieving, he's in mourning, so he's shut off. And he's not exactly like an unreliable narrator, but there's also something about him that you can't quite place, which leads you to kind of fill in the blanks yourself. For instance, I know one fan theory is that he wears like what seems to be a military jacket, but never mentions like actually being in the military. He's actually pretty bad at combat. So there's like the whole stolen valor thing, and I think you get like a mention of either him or another Sunderland in another Silent Hill game. Point is, in this movie, they've changed him into like a bit of a bad boy, at least visually. He has a leather jacket, he drives a Mustang convertible, which is a far cry from the old beat-up car he drives in game. He's also a painter, for some reason. And don't get me wrong, I mean, it's nice to know, like, anything about him, but it never really amounts to much. He's never really, like, outright aggressive or crazy in the game, but here, however, you're basically told from the get-go that James is a little cuckoo bananas. He checks in multiple times with a therapist that does not exist in the game, so from the start, you don't really trust him. I did, like, kind of like what they did with the therapist, at least at first, because, like, she's framed in, like, this broken glass, which at first was kind of a cool little visual thing, but it just cuts back to her more and more, and you see the broken glass, and then they start talking about his broken psyche, which is represented by the broken glass. So it gets a little tired after a while, but kudos. I think they mentioned like him being off of his meds or something. The therapist orders a wellness check on him, and we see him drinking, getting thrown out of a bar. And as the movie goes along, he has these like psychological breaks where like he like he clutches his head and like screams, which just like kind of scream to the audience that it's all in James's head somehow, which, yeah, we know that Silent Hill is a very, like, mental place, but it's also supposed to be up for interpretation and debate on if these things are really happening to these characters or if it's just all imagined. And that's kind of the case here, but I think it suggests one too many times that it's just all in his head to the point that it's just not fun to guess anymore. I'm getting ahead of myself, but like later in the movie, when he kind of realizes that like everything is a manifestation of his mind, like when he fully gives in to the darkness, he starts doing like full Jack Nicholson in The Shining, where he just like stare down the barrel of the camera. And he even does like a one point towards the end, when he realizes that everything's in his head, Pyramid Head is in his head, and that he can summon Pyramid Head, he summons Pyramid Head to just outright slaughter Maria. Which is not how it should go. As somebody who is supposedly just racked with guilt, bereft with guilt over his wife's death, allowing an outright controlling Pyramid Head to kill the doppelganger of his wife. It's a little bit overboard, James. And obviously, you learn that James killed Mary, which is why he's here. But the way it's framed in the movie is just so, oh god. So Mary, and trust me, I will get to Mary, essentially asks James to kill her, therefore kind of absolving him of any wrongdoing. It's framed more as like this good deed that he's doing for her, which is a whole other tangent I could go on. Movies not really allowing their protagonists to be fully flawed individuals, but I will save that because I'm ranting enough. So if he doesn't have the guilt of killing Mary, then he really shouldn't be there in the first place. The reveal that Mary is dead at all, which you find out in the first minute, maybe, of the game, is saved for a third act twist here and kind of framed as something that James has apparently just completely forgotten. before, I think it's just like hinted at that they broke up. So already the catalyst here is completely different. And like I can understand a man going through this horrifying town with these horrifying creatures if he thinks that there is a chance that his wife is either alive or somehow calling to him from beyond the grave. But if he just thinks that she's alive, why do all this? If he's just trying to get back with her, like James, my guy, she's just a girl. No lady is worth it. No lady parts are that good. Just like hit her with the classic "you up." Text me back when you can, girl. Which is another little nitpick I have, a little nerdy nitpick. There's a moment when James is in the other worlds for the first time, and he makes a phone call back to the real world with his therapist. And again, you get the broken glass. The phone reception is just crystal clear. I mean, if he's supposedly in this like twisted, upside down, hellish version of this world, he should not be able to make a call back home, even if we are dealing with dream logic here. And I think the reason it bothers me is because in the first movie, it's established when Rose tries to call Christopher from the other dimension, the call doesn't really go through. It's like staticky and broken up. You only get bits and pieces. And there are some phone calls in the game, all of which come from landlines, I think. I think at least like once or twice, they kind of allude to the fact the phone itself is not even plugged in, which kind of, again, frames it as sort of like a, is this really happening thing? But here, that just was not telegraphed at all, or telephoned at all, if you will. But if they are trying to say that his cell phone reached all the way into the other world, James, I need your cell phone plan because I can't even get reception in the subway. And that brings me to Mary herself. Again, like with Jeremy, I think she did a pretty good job. Hannah Emily Anderson plays her, and I think she did a good job making her very likable, humanizing her. And I don't necessarily dislike the idea of getting to know James and Mary's relationship a little bit more. In the game, we don't really get any flashbacks. It's just all exposition, mostly in that third act. And we just kind of take James's word for it. Here, we get actual flashbacks, which, while I like in theory, they just end up completely destroying the pace of the film. Like James will be running from monsters, and then he'll come across like an object, like one of the puzzles in the game, and then it'll just cut away to like this 2 or 3 minute scene, if sometimes longer, explaining immediately the purpose of this thing, and then he'll have like a little brain freak out, which brings him back to Silent Hill. There's no mystery. Like, it just immediately explains the meaning of what we just saw. Like, I get it's him remembering things, but we don't even have time to learn what these things are. But through these flashbacks, we learn that Mary was the daughter of this
Terrible, terrible cult leader named Joshua Crane,
who just like horrifically abused her. And the other cult members kind of acted as like this de facto family for her. But they also did these weird blood-tasting ritual things. And through that, it's, I think, implied that that is how she becomes sick. Mary says that like her father's been poisoning her entire life. And she's developed a sickness from that, which... Sure. So first of all, the cult is not in the game. I do think there's like some little notes and stuff, tertiary world building lore, but we don't actually see it. And I get that there's the cult stuff in the first movie and of course Revelation, but not Silent Hill 2. And that's something that makes Silent Hill 2 so unique. Again, is that it is such an intimate, small, standalone story. I just hate the reason behind her sickness. I just think I just think it completely destroys her character. Again, Silent Hill is unique in that there are so many kind of standalone games. Like Resident Evil has the overarching plot, but other than like the cult aspects, they're all separate. They're all part and like their own unique stories and unique hells. The point is that Silent Hill is different for every single person. Every person who comes in has their own contained experience with some little bleed over here and there. And that was the case with 2. It is very small scale, very intimate, so I don't really think it needed to be brought into this bigger world. But I digress. Back to Mary. Now, in the game, Mary has, I believe, cancer from, as far as we know, it's a naturally occurring thing. And because of this, she slowly wastes away. And in her slow death, her relationship with James deteriorates. There's no intimacy in the relationship anymore. James implies that Mary becomes rather cold and sort of passively, verbally abusive toward him, and he grows to resent the burden that she's become. He misses the life that they used to have, and in a moment of extreme weakness and extreme selfishness, he smothers her with a pillow and kills her. I want to say it's implied that maybe she asked him or implied that she didn't want to keep living, but she never outright asks James to kill her. I think he even mentions that she wanted to live. She wanted the possibility of a long life together. And that's the whole point, is that James regrets doing it. And the whole point too, I think, and what makes it so just beautifully tragic is just how realistic it is. I mean, this is something that could, and unfortunately does, happen to anyone, to so many people. A loved one getting sick and withering away before their eyes. There's nothing they can do about it. And so James has a very human moment, something that many people experience. Maybe not the killing part so much, but that growing resentment. Yes, it is selfish to prioritize yourself and your needs when your loved one is hurting. Yes, but it happens. You know, we're all imperfect. And yes, sometimes people who are suffering lash out and hurt others. It is very much a two things can be true at once kind of thing. All of that goes out the window when you learn that, oh, it's just poisoning from a cult. Whoopsie daisy! Who could have foreseen this? Because that's not something that happens to everyone. At least I hope it's not something that happens to everyone. Are you suffering from cult poisoning? If so, leave a comment down below. And it takes their love story from something that is so universal, so almost painfully familiar, to something that is so specific and so over the top. Not saying that cults don't exist and they don't kill people, but again, it's less common. It also means that we don't get one of my favorite moments of the game, one of the most beautiful, I think, which is that videotape at the Lakeview Hotel. It's such a beautiful moment, and a moment of just like stark realism after all of the crazy, nightmarish things we just went through. And I think it's waiting until that moment to learn about the relationship, to see how happy they were, reframes everything that happened before it, because you see why, you see the happiness. But that's not even my least favorite thing about Mary. I will get to that later. But for now, I will move on to Maria. And again, I think the actress who also played Mary did a good job. Maria is not as outright flirty here as she is in the game, but I feel like the spirit is generally there. But, and it is a big but, a big J-Lo-sized booty, by removing the flirtiness, you sort of lose the purpose. You lose James's temptation. Maria is a very interesting character in the game, and it's implied that she might actually be a little bit more than just a manifestation of James's imagination. But the whole side DLC, that's a whole other thing. But at the end of the day, she represents both temptation and repression. The repression that James felt after Mary got sick, when he could no longer love his wife physically, that whole aspect of their relationship disappeared. So he has created Maria, who is this sexual, uber attractive version of Mary, the idealized version of Mary. And by her existing, it means that James does not have to face the fact that he killed his wife, because there she is. Only now she has bigger bazoingas. But as you get closer to uncovering the truth, even she starts to kind of unravel a bit and lash out at James, because she can feel that he's getting closer to the truth, and she wants to continue to exist. And so obviously James feels very protective of her. Subconsciously, he feels like he needs to protect her, since not only does she look like Mary, but also to make up for not being able to protect or save Mary when she was alive. There's a lot of layers. It's an onion. It's an onion of a game. Now, Maria is killed a few times in the game by Pyramid Head as a way to make James realize what he did and to torture him for it, to make him see someone he loves or cares for brutally killed time and time again. Here, though, James just outright has Pyramid Head stab her with his sword when he realizes she's a manifestation. What? Maybe I just missed what they were going for here. He literally just like he snaps back from a vision. He does the Nicholson thing, and then he just like summons Pyramid Head to just like freaking wreck her. Pyramid Head just like starts swinging that thing. His sword, not his sword, but his sword.
Huh?
You know what I mean? Because she's not flirty, because she's not really passive aggressively mean. Like she didn't do anything to deserve it. In her very few scenes, she was actually like kind and helpful. Which what is that supposed to say? That like he just he enjoys killing? He doesn't seem the least bit sorry for it. In the game, Maria is literally born from a wish. It's the title of that side DLC where she's playable, but also literally from James's wish to see Mary again in this idealized state. So when he comes across her on the pier, which is a special spot for them where she said to meet, it's supposed to be the first time that we see her, and it kind of implied that until the DLC came along, that that's where she started to exist. She's like literally being conjured before him from a dream. But we do see her, albeit briefly, before that point, where she follows him while he's chasing Laura. I think she like says she's been watching him for a while, which may have been in like a little allusion to the DLC, but doesn't really make sense. And the way they meet is so unceremonious. Like he's going through this maze, which is supposed to be like the garden hedge maze from the game, and she just like literally rounds a corner and says, "Oh, cheerio, James. I've been watching you." And oh, really? Follow me. And like he barely kind of gives any attention to her, and you get like a really brief shots of him like kind of realizing that she looks like Mary, but he doesn't come to that realization himself. Later on, she outright just tells him that I know I look like Mary. And then we have Angela. And oh god, this one really broke my heart because Angela is one of my favorite characters, and I think she's certainly one of the most tragic. She's the face of the original game. It's her on the cover, and I do think her scenes are some of the most sad and unfortunately some of the most realistic and relatable for me. She is abused physically and sexually by her father, who we later fight in the manifestation of the abstract daddy. It's also very heavily implied that she either has or would like to, shall we say, remove herself from this plane of existence. She's easily scared, she's shut off, has very low self-esteem, and she's been taught to blame herself for this trauma she's endured. And yet, she still has the slightest little bit of agency. She has these little moments where, well, definitely, yes, a little unstable. She does stand up for herself. And I think watching her arc over the course of the game and her implied tragic ending is the thing that really hits home and helped me process some of the things that I had been through. All told, she's a very normal, very human character in the game. In the movie, though, she's just like your stereotypically creepy woman. Don't get me wrong, all of the wigs in the movie are bad, but hers might be the worst. She's pale, she's haggard. She even kind of has like this husky, creepy voice, which I think kind of goes against everything that the character is. She's the opposite of Maria in a lot of ways, actually skewing a little bit closer to Mary in that she's a bit frumpy, she's less classically beautiful, but still a very pretty girl. If she's at all creepy, I think it kind of comes more from her being shut off and a little bit mentally unstable. You could argue she's a little monotone, a little one note, but that's just because she's so stuck in her trauma. And there is a reason for her being so different in the movie, which ties into my remaining gripe with Mary, but we will also get to that later. But because of that, we also don't get what is perhaps my other favorite moment, and maybe my favorite moment, which is Angela's ascent, maybe to heaven, maybe to hell, on that fiery hotel staircase. It's such a beautiful, powerful scene, and it's just not here. And for that, I am forever bummed. Next up is Eddie, who I may as well not even talk about, because he's not really a character here. In the game, Eddie is this childish, mentally unstable man. He is a mirror to James's unchecked rage and violent impulses, and he shows what James could become if he were to give in to his own impulses. He has a very unfortunate past incident involving a dog, and due to being bullied very heavily for his weight and his intelligence, is mere moments away from snapping. He's also the first person that you encounter in the game who also is implied to have seen the monsters, which lends credence to the fact that James maybe isn't going crazy and that these things he's seeing do exist. You do end up fighting Eddie as one of the bosses in one of the rare moments when James steps into somebody else's otherworld, and also one of the rare moments where you fight an actual human in one of the games. And we get his intro scene in the game, a kind of iconic scene of him puking in the toilet. But the reason is not the same. There is no body in the fridge that he is implied to have killed. He's just there to kind of act crazy. And he accompanies James for one scene, punches him, and just runs off when Pyramid Head shows up. And that's it. He's just there to act unstable and convey to the audience that, man, this place is messed up, isn't it? There's a lot of crazy stuff going on around here. You better get out while you still can. Thank you, Eddie. But we know that. As evidenced by literally everything. We don't get his arc. We don't get his slow unraveling, nor his infamous pizza scene. And honestly, the movie is worse off for it. Now, as of filming this, Christoph Gans did just come out and say at a recent screening that they did film an additional scene with Eddie, his death scene, which, if the novel is anything to go off of, I've not read it, but I've read a summary, and that scene is just James killing Eddie after Eddie says he represents a version of James, which again, not really. Eddie is very much his own thing. But it would explain why James has an absolutely atrocious beard in the third act. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. And then we have Laura. And I did like that Laura was played by Evie Templeton, who also played her in the remake. I thought she did a great job in the remake. Apparently that was just a happy accident, as Christoph didn't know she was in the remake. I don't know. In the game, Laura is a bit of a brat. She's a former friend of Mary's from the hospital. She may have been sick or dying herself. Mary was sort of a mother figure to her. I think it is said that Laura herself is an orphan. As such, she kind of torments James by kicking away keys, locking him in rooms with monsters, keeping secrets, all that. Very naughty of you, Laura. She represents the innocence lost and the potential future for James and Mary. Mary's desire to have a family. Because of her innocence, she is the only one that doesn't see any sort of hellish otherworld in the town. She really only sees it for what it really is. And also James for who he really is. One of my favorite little details in the game is until the very end, there's always something separating James from Laura. Either a door or a gate or a wall. It's not until he accepts the truth of what he's done to Mary that he's able to even get near her, signifying the hope of perhaps a happy ending for her. Here, she's just a creepy kid. Like, Angela was bad. Like, she is far worse. She's just that stereotypical pale kid who says creepy things. Like, she even does, like, the stereotypical, like, choppy frame rate, skitter thing. She has a creepy possessed doll thing that may be a creature in and of itself. Like, sometimes it moves, sometimes it doesn't. She's just there to be creepy and say creepy things like, "Do you like my doll? Are you ready to learn the truth now?" Like, she doesn't talk like that. It might have honestly been a little bit better. And then she just disappears. And, God, I might as well just rip off that Band-Aid. So the reason for this change, and the Angela change, and the Mary change, is that both Angela and Laura, and by extension Maria, are revealed to be Mary.
What? What the fuck?
Angela, Laura, are Mary's two middle names. And they represent her at different points in her life. Oh, God. God, I wish I was joking. No longer are they their own characters with beautifully tragic backstories and their own motivations and desires. They're all just Mary. Oops, all Marys, which I don't even think really fleshes Mary out all that much either. Like, yeah, it makes sense in the context that we're told about her father being an evil cult leader, so like this is her through the years. But I think ironically, by attempting to make her like so fleshed out, it makes her less so. Like to me, it actually kind of endeared me more to Mary that while she was sick and in treatment, she befriended this little girl in need of a parental figure, which makes it just all the more tragic that Mary died, because now three people, they all lost the chance at having a happy ending. The less we know about Mary, it means that the things James says about her, that she was verbally abusive and cold and all that, but also very loving, it makes it all the more likely. And again, not that it's any excuse to kill somebody, but still. Angela and Laura, and even Eddie, who thankfully is not another side to Mary. I mean, can you imagine? Just like, hey, James, it's me, Mary. Come give me a kiss, big boy. But Angela and Laura and Eddie are necessary characters in the story because they reflect James's guilt back at him. If Maria is James's wish fulfillment, and they are like the stark reminders of why he does not deserve that wish. Think of them as like the three ghosts that visit Scrooge, which I guess makes Maria Jacob Marley, but I don't want to picture Scrooge being visited by a sexy ghost. Or maybe I do. So on one hand, you have Laura, who's a bit bratty, ultimately very pure. She's too young to have done anything terrible and is just really there looking for love. You could also argue that she's that last little bit of love and innocence remaining between the couple, but it's just always out of reach until that very end. Angela and Eddie represent the different sides of guilt and trauma. On one extreme, you have Angela, who has become just so consumed with her guilt and her trauma that she started blaming herself for it. And her other world is represented by fire, by this just painful flame that consumes everything around it, or in another lens, cleanses things. So the only way for her to be happy and to find forgiveness is just to burn everything to the ground, herself included, and start anew, even in another life. And on the other extreme, you have Eddie, whose other world is constantly cold. Eddie is a character that is figuratively and literally cold because of what he's done, what he's been through. He's frozen himself in time and development. He's this grown man who looks and dresses like a little kid. He's still very impulsive and childish. He only ever blames other people for his misfortune. Both characters obviously end up resorting to violence, which is what brings them to Silent Hill. Angela kills her father. Eddie kills the dog. Maybe he's bullied, up for interpretation. And then you have James in the middle, who killed somebody, but could go either way depending on the choices that he makes in Silent Hill. How he threads that needle is up to you, essentially. But it also, I think, robs Mary of her humanity as well. I mean, she was a happy woman, an imperfect, but ultimately well-intentioned woman who fell victim to this very random, very real misfortune, who was very much in pain. But again, it was arguable on if she actually wanted to die. But the movie just makes her out to be this overly tragic figure who had an absolutely miserable life and doesn't do anything wrong other than, I don't know, keep a secret, which, to be fair, is a pretty crappy thing to do. I mean, if you're the daughter of an infamous cult leader and inviting said cult over to the house you share with
The person you're married to, the least you can do is tell them.
the only real time that she has any real agency is when she asks James to kill her. And by making it her choice rather than his selfish action, it sort of removes so much dimension to James. And it's not like this is the first time the series has messed up or just completely nerfed a character before. Each movie has. In the first movie, it was Lisa. In the second movie, it was, well, everyone, to be fair. But at least they were still their own characters and not just manifestations of Heather, you know? By not interacting with characters who are different people, different lives, James doesn't really learn anything because he didn't really do anything. He accepts responsibility for something that, while yes, he may have carried out, he wasn't really responsible for. In the movie, he never really resented Mary or wanted her gone. At least not because of her sickness, more so because she was part of a cult, which, at least in my opinion, is a valid reason for not wanting someone around. But he still seemingly loved Mary until the very end. All he really has to do is come to terms with the fact that she's dead at all, not that he specifically killed her. So, yeah, while he might have some guilt that he carried out the act, the all encompassing guilt of his momentary weakness isn't there, which sort of negates the need for Pyramid Head. And like, I mean, yeah, he's here, but he doesn't really act all that different from the other monsters.
I think at one point he literally just goes, "Roar!" Okay, brah.
In the game, he's unique because he's essentially like the boogeyman. He's that lumbering, ever-present force that is constantly just chasing James, finding him wherever he is throughout the game. While the more metallic helmet of the movie does look cool, I don't really like that they made him like this big, buff dude. In that first movie, it could maybe be inferred that Alessa needed a protector, but if it's a manifestation of James, what does that imply? That James wants to be punished by a big, muscly man? I mean, no judgment if he does. I'm just saying. Or that he pictures himself as like this big, buff Chad? I mean, it would kind of make sense with what he does to poor Maria. In the game, Pyramid Head is much leaner, almost like a little wimpy looking. Because, I mean, this sword is not the only burden that he is carrying. The pyramid, whether it's his helmet or its actual head, it seems to be painful itself. And yes, I know it's implied that in the historical society that the pyramid is the old executioner helmet of the town, but we don't really know if that's literally the case. We don't know if it's a helmet still or if it's its actual head, because we're not supposed to know what Pyramid Head is or looks like underneath the helmet. There are theories that he's another form of the god Valtiel from Silent Hill 3, but that's never officially confirmed. But here, they just straight up show you that it is James beneath the helmet. Which, yes, I know technically it's a manifestation of his guilt and desire to be punished, so yes, you could infer that it is James under the helmet, but the fun thing is that it's open for interpretation. Like, it zooms in through a little crack in the helmet, and underneath you have James Nicholson. And, like, I think he even has, like, black hair now to show you that, oh, this isn't your mama's James, this is evil James. Kind of like how Heather's dark persona has dark hair as well, because black hair means evil. It's also shown that in this version, everyone can see Pyramid Head, not just James. And I guess I can't even fault this movie for that, since the other movies did that too, as have some of the games. Now, obviously, what Pyramid Head is now, what he's become, is different from what he started out as. But I was just kind of hoping that, since Pyramid Head was originally created as solely a figure of James's mind, that the movie actually dealing with James's mind might portray him accurately. But alas, no such luck. Silent Hill 2, in a lot of ways, is about repression, about not getting the things you need, like love, intimacy, justice, and how it affects you. It's about holding back, and by extension, the slow unraveling of mystery. About being trapped, whether in a nightmarish hell of your own making, or in your own skin, like these monsters are. Here, all of that is gone. The sole purpose of the therapist character comes to light when, at the climax of the movie, James wakes up in the hospital, and it is, I think, very heavily inferred that this is actually happening, that James is waking up from a nightmare. The therapist is there, and her whole purpose in the movie is just to explain to the audience what's going on with James. She tells us early on, James is mentally unwell, and at the climax, she literally just outright tells the audience that Mary is dead, and that broke James's mind and sent him spiraling. God, like, we're not allowed any subtlety or metaphorical imagery. It just spells everything out to us. It would be like if Pennywise popped up in It and was just like, "Hiya, Georgie. I represent the long-lasting effects of trauma that follow you into adulthood." I don't know why Pennywise is Scooby-Doo with laryngitis. But my point stands. She's literally just like, "Welcome back to the real world, James. You keep going back to Silent Hill because of your psychosis. You know, your psychosis that your dead wife, Mary. You remember Mary, your dead wife who's dead and no longer alive, who gave you psychosis. You're going to Silent Hill, James. Come out of Silent Hill."
Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum.
Like when we see this movie's version of the mannequin, we can't infer what it means at all because before it becomes monstrous, it looks like Mary. And James even calls it out. Gone are the weird, faceless mash of limbs that represent his sexual frustration. Here, it's a big spider creature. And while I get the reason for the change, spiders do be creepy. Revelation already did like a big mannequin monster. Weirdly, also very spider-like. But if he wanted to avoid redoing that, I think he did a kind of a bad job because it's essentially the same creature, the same exact sequence, even down to like it picking up a disembodied head and the head screaming at the camera and the eyes pop open. I can sort of understand that the studio may not want to do a monster that looks like two pairs of lady bits smashed together, but then why are they okay with the abstract daddy, which is way more like blatantly obvious by removing the mannequins and what they represent. When you do have that infamous assault scene with Pyramid Head, it's no longer a disturbing scene of unbalanced power dynamics. It's just one creature fighting another. It looks like a WWE Power Rangers match. Like it attacks Pyramid Head and screams at him, and then he just like beats on it until it dies, which may make some sense. Like if that's what James actually did, if he willingly killed her or abused her or whatever, but he never harmed Mary before killing her. And we aren't allowed to infer what Pyramid Head represents because, again, it shows us James's face inside the helmet. And as if all that wasn't enough, it later shows James painting a pyramid over a painting of himself, which I guess is the reason why he's a painter in the movie, so he could just spell it out to the audience even more. I can't think for myself. At the end of the movie, you get the in water ending where James drives the car with Mary's body into the water and drowns himself so they can be together forever. Very morbid, but very beautiful. But then he just wakes back up at the beginning of the movie where he first meets Mary. Now, there have been rumors since the game first came out ages ago that it's all a time loop. You encounter a couple bodies throughout the game that use James's character model, and of course, you can interpret whatever you want from that because it's open for interpretation. It doesn't just spell it out for you. Some see it as James being forced to live this cycle of guilt over and over for all eternity, making slightly different choices along the way. At the end of the film, though, James does seem to remember Mary, which, yes, would imply that he's done all this before, but also kind of implies that he didn't really learn anything because he got what he wanted, which was his wife back. And then he drives the opposite as he did in the beginning of the movie, which is away from Silent Hill. So did the movie happen at all? And whether it did or didn't, did James actually learn anything at all? What did he learn? He learned, I could have had a V8. Like a couple other little nitpicky things. The radio is established as always. He has it with him throughout the movie, but it just kind of like stops making noise, I think, which, yes, I get it. We know what it does. And it works in a game setting, there's enemies around. It wouldn't really work so much in a movie without getting annoying. Whatever. There's also a few moments where we get like this first person perspective. The first time is at the very beginning of the movie when James is like just at a bar. Okay. And then we get it when he gets to the town and is running through the other world, which is sort of cool. But then I don't think we ever get it again. And don't get me wrong, I didn't really like it. It felt very odd. Sort of like that first person perspective scene in the Doom movie from ages ago. But at least that you got like cool carnage. Here it's just running. So I didn't like it. but it's also just kind of odd to establish it and then stop doing it. The CGI is also just way, way worse. There's times when it is like painfully obvious that they're on a green screen. And the wigs,
Do you wear wigs?
too, again, atrocious. And yes, I know they had a much, much smaller budget than before. I think it was like half of what that original movie had, but still, we have seen how clever some movies can be with smaller budgets through camera angles or keeping things obscured. Like here, it was not. And maybe like halfway through the movie, I started to get this feeling in my chest. At first, I thought it was just a disappointment, but I've been disappointed at movies before, even outright angry. But this was different. This was just a whole new feeling that I don't remember maybe ever feeling. And it dawned on me it was immense sadness, which feels ridiculous to say, but I really did feel like this pang of immense sadness. Like people were laughing at parts that were supposed to be serious, like the emotional climax of the story. People were cracking up. And one guy after the movie turned to someone in the row behind him, somebody he didn't even know, and he asked, am I supposed to know what the hell that story was about? So I was bummed, you know, not only because I was seeing this story, which means so much to me, and it just hacked to pieces and fundamentally misunderstood. But it also occurred to me that like people are gonna think this is what the story is. You know, like general audiences who don't play games are going to see this movie and think that this is what the game is, and not know what the big deal is, and never experience this beautiful, beautiful story. And of course, if it bombs at the box office, which it's seeming like it might, I just don't see a world where they don't take the wrong lesson from that. Like, this is probably the only time this story will be produced for the screen, at least in my lifetime. Because of the reception of this movie, I can't see them remaking it anytime soon. I, I just don't know what happened. Maybe this is just like my own Silent Hill. This is my punishment, my hell. I'm finally getting punished for all the wrongdoings I've done in life. And again, like Christoph Gans is clearly a fan of the series. Like he did solid work on this first movie. He has to know what the game is about and the legacy it has, and for him to come up with this. And he did recently say that he was mandated by the studio to keep it under 2 hours, and that the director's cut breathes a little bit more, but I just don't see them adding anything to this movie that would make it palatable. It's essentially would just be a couple more scenes, Eddie's scene, maybe one or two more. Trust me, breathing is not the issue that this movie had. I could argue it shouldn't have been breathing in the first place. And again, I know it's an adaptation. I was expecting things to be different, even whole parts removed, like Toluca Prison and everything. I was fine with it. I was ready for that. But I feel like the source material is strong enough that even if you try to cover most of it, if you take things out, rearrange it, whatever, you'll still have at best like a B grade horror movie, because the material is that strong. And I get this was a different take on the story, so me saying that what the movie should be kind of silly because it's not a one-to-one thing. But the thing is that I'm all for again, I loved the remake and the changes that it made, especially with that abstract daddy fight. But I would just hope that any different spin on the story at least honors the intent of the original story. The game did. This did not. Oh yeah, I hate to say it, but it kind of encroached on fan film territory, and even not that great a fan film. I've seen Silent Hill fan films that are better than this. It was like somebody saw a playthrough of the game 20 years ago while reading a book or cooking or doing something, and then rewrote it from memory while also like adding in some things to be edgy and cool. And I think it's telling that the people who do seem to be enjoying the movie are those who have not played the game. Like as a standalone piece, I can maybe see it working. Even as a Silent Hill piece, I can kind of see it working. It would be great, but it would be something. It feels like something just masquerading as Silent Hill 2. Like they had bits and pieces of a Silent Hill story and just said, "Oh, you know what the kids like these days? They like that Silent Hill 2 game. So let's just mash it together." Like Silent Hill 2 is a game that holds up to logic and critique, no matter how much you think about it and question it, question why things happen, it still holds up. It still makes sense. This, the more thought you put into it, the less sense it makes. I think it tries to be smart, it tries to be a little bit edgy, and it tries to be romantic, but at least in my opinion, it ends up being none of those things. If I had to rate it, gun to my head, I think I would give it a 2 out of 10, which kills me to say, but this is not Silent Hill 2. I know I'm overthinking it, but can you blame me? I mean, what do you guys think? Not that I really feel like I need to ask. I've seen what people think, but still, let me know what you thought. And if you did enjoy even any part of it, let me know. Please, please let me know so that I may leech off of your enjoyment. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. I'm sorry it was such a downer. I really do, believe it or not, hate to be so negative. I just had to get this off of my chest. I will be back soon with more creepy and hopefully better quality collection content. In the meantime, don't forget, stay spooky.